Hello, I'm Dr. Marc Senecal. I'm going to demonstrate for you a guided session. And a guided session is a very empowering session where I will be doing minimal facilitating with my hands, but mostly encouraging Marc to touch some areas himself that I'm visualizing. So the feedback is going to be very, very helpful, and it enhances participation as well. So welcome, Marc. How are you on this day?
Amazing.
Cool. Are you looking forward to receiving a guided session?
I am.
Me too. I'm really looking forward to sharing it. So, yeah. Well, right off the get-go, that was a scan that I was just trying to get an idea of a representation of where he is, because pretty soon all I'm going to be able to work off of is visually. But I do want to still get what we call a baseline, where he is right now, representation of what's going on with his tone, his structure. We call it percussive scanning, get a sense of what's going on throughout his form. Obviously, from my touch and from what you're seeing, he's very dynamic. So is there any area of your body, Marc, that's looking for a little attention? Is it looking like it would like a little more peace, breath, movement, fluidity, even engagement, a little releasing, a little liberation?
Yeah, I'd say maybe this area up here a
Okay.
little bit, and maybe back here.
Okay.
Maybe they're connected.
Okay. So because he pointed to areas that are in his torso, it's actually ideal that he stay seated because he's locking in the pelvis. So a lot of the energies are not going to move beyond his pelvis and go down to his legs, his feet. So it's wonderful. So what we're looking at here is to get more peace, breath, movement, and fluidity in these areas. And so what we'd like to see is that he actually gets his own internal representation of what's happening. And there it is, flexion. Flexion is an increase of awareness. So he's getting to be able to scan his own body. So give yourself permission to go into that little area. So what he's doing is he's actually inflexing. He's making the fulcrum the area that he wants more peace, breath, movement, and fluidity. So he's folding, if you will, right into this area so he can get a really good representation of what's going on. And as you're feeling that, Marc, do you get a sense of like what areas are going to loosen first? Do you get a sense of where that's going to come from?
I feel like this side feels really light and easy.
Okay,
and
he's mentioning that
fluid.
the right side feels a lot easier and lighter. So what we're going to do is we're going to use that as an area of influence here. And you can see already the concavity. So it's like a C. So this is where we're going into the C, and this is the convexity. This is out on this side over here. So it's like this. So we're going to play into this right here and torque. Now the part of this that gets really guided is when he starts doing this on his own based on my recommendations. So does that feel supportive that you're touching that? Does it feel like that's about as far you want to go as amplitude?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. So what we're going to do now, because this is as far as he wants to go with amplitude, is recoil, which is just a quick release. It's a very catalytic move to recoil. And it's where the withdraw of the contact is more important than the application of the contact. And we'll help here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm really going to observe. And you can see he's isolating within the torso. What you're seeing that's going on in the head, that's what we would call dissipation. This is energy leaving the body. It's leaving through the head, all that movements. Now what's going on in the torso is more dissemination, where the energies are being redistributed. And so if there is going to be releasing of energy, it's going to come out of the torso and out of the head. And then all the tensions that remain is going to be redistributed. I feel like we're really getting a pretty good representation of this posture. I think what's more important is that we get a representation of other postures. And the one that I'm getting the most is if he were on his back and I'm bringing legs to his chest and then even guiding him to do the same. Again, putting all the energy here in this area and creating we would call wiggle room, where the body can, we call it a recursive knot phenomena, where he would break free, and his wisdom of his body will help him break free from his specific recursive configuration, if you will. So on your back, Mark. So just imagine, if you will, Mark, that I am bringing your legs to your chest. Just imagine that and just feel what that feels like. There you go. Yeah, and go give yourself permission to engage as well, as deeply, and more importantly, this is the big one, as long as you need to. We would call this a sustained contact. So however long you need to touch what you're touching, go for it. And then play around in there and see what needs to be touched. So he's exploring his body. He's trying different postures. So he's using the legs as a resource to get the tensegrity, which is the tensional integrity in his body, to help support what he's looking for in that area. And then from there, give yourself the gift of release. Let your legs just go off into the table, all the way down. There you go. Well, bring your head back a little bit. There we go. So you can see what we're doing as far as engaging that area that he was talking about, which is, in Catalyst, we call that an area of influence. And then when we really are looking to get specific, like very specific, we look for the sweet spot within the sweet spot. So if I were to facilitate him with touch, I would come here in the small of the neck. We all know the small of the back. What the small of the neck is deep into the concavity when he goes back. Now, how about using deep in the concavity here and deep in the concavity here, which, if you're knowing the curves of the body, these are the two lordotic curves. We got a lordotic curve here, and a lordotic curve here, and a kyphotic curve here. It really comes this way. So in the neck, from where you're looking at it, it's more like an N. This is more like a U, and then this is like an N. So that's why they call the small of the back, because you go into the concavity here of the low back, and the concavity here of the neck. And you could just see, even a very, very gentle lift, what this is doing for whole body dynamics. And we propose in Catalyst that if the body is communicating more whole body wise, that the regulatory systems of the body are as optimal as they can be, the more that the body is functioning with itself and interacting with itself. So with a guided session, what we're looking at here is I'm visually challenging him. What that means is that I'm visually scanning him. I'm looking at different areas and I'm going, wow, I really love lifting the legs up. And so when I am doing it, it's passive for him, right? If I do this, he's just basically going along for the ride. And so this creates a lot of opportunity that the body wouldn't have otherwise. Because if he were to do this, again, he would have to contract. So if I'm doing it, he's getting a lot of potential for releasing. And why? Because when you're contracting, you're opposing releasing. But when you are passive like this, then he can really release. And what is that like, to have somebody passively bring your knee to your chest like that, and then vector the way I'm vectoring, because I'm vectoring basing it on breath, peace, movement, and fluidity. And the hand there moving, so. So 2 questions that I ask quite frequently in guided sessions. The first question is, where are all these movements coming from? That's a great inquiry to give a participant, is to find out, where are these movements originating? Where in your body do they start coming from? But more importantly, is where do these movements want to go? So I'm going to offer that to Marc right now. Where do these movements want you to go? Where in your body? And don't have to speak it, just show it. Just kind of follow where everything wants to go. And what you'll see, what Marc is going to do, he's now having a more active relationship with his body's messages. And we're seeing how that plays out. So we're enhancing the relationship between Marc, the conscious thinker, and Marc's body, the conscious expressor. Now, can you feel the amount of releasing that's happening by him touching all that he's touching? This is a very, very important component of Catalyst, is that we actually touch what we touch very gently, very, very respectfully, like we call it optimizing it, right? Very optimally, in order to get the most beneficial release. And again, release, remember, is dissipating. It's the clearing. It's what leaves the body, right? We look at it as unwinding, as letting go. And in addition to that, there's still the redistribution of the existing tensions, and that's dissemination. That's when the energies, the tensions being distributed through the body. So I want you to notice something. When Marc first started out, most of the work that he was talking about was all in the torso, and if you remember, the pelvis was locked. You can see the pelvis is now playing a much more dynamic role. This is a fantastic posture for the pelvis playing a more dynamic role, being on his side, because he's actually recruiting now the contribution from the pelvis, which is absolutely beautiful. And when you are ready, Marc, when he is ready, you go ahead and stand up when you're really ready and figure out how you're going to get there. And you may want to consider standing on my side over here, because more of the camera will be able to see you. Yeah, very good. I would suggest bending backwards, like a little bit. Yeah, there you go. Can you agree with me that this is a very good call? See, right now he's touching specific areas. This is where he's having greater awareness of the areas that he's touching. So in Catalyst, we call this awareness, 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 and then sit straight back up when you're ready, stand, and then integration. And so this is where he starts to release all that what he's touched. And would you say that was your experience as well? Okay, very good. And now with the shoulders, exactly, as I remove the shoulders, as soon as I said it, where do they want to be? How do they want to move? There you go. Awareness, 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 awareness. See, in the flexibility, this is where he's assessing his, even subconsciously or unconsciously or autonomically, his body is getting a better representation of what's going on. That's a fabulous posture. Most people like to criticize flexion because it enhances adverse mechanical cord tension. But if it's done intelligently, meaning by the guidance and the wisdom of the body, and you're following it, not taking it too far, it's an incredible resource when you're using flexion, because you're actually getting the lay of the land. And more importantly, you're also letting your body get the lay of the land, which is unconscious or subconscious, or to you. It's below the threshold of your cognitive mind. So he's more in touch with the body. More importantly, now the body is also more in touch with the body. I feel like we've exhausted the standing posture here. And I'm really trying to get the sense of, are we going to go face down? Are we going to go on his back? And I'm trying to figure out what we're going to touch. I love the flexion. I got to be honest with you, and what he was doing. So sort of crawl over the table so you're sitting and facing the camera still. Yeah. So when I put him in this position, what I was seeing was the benefit that was going to come from flexion. And I want you to get that. notice that the charge is not anywhere near as much now. Like the benefit is not as whatever you want to call it, like pregnant. It's not there as strongly, the need for flexion. So you can feel that. So obviously his tensegrity stress posture has changed. So there has been a lot of shifting with what's going on. So I like what he's doing. I'm still interested where it all wants to go. Now he's recruiting some flexion there, which is normal. I'm going to give him some support. So this way he can go even further. See what's happening here? See, you heard it? Nice little sound. So he can go further now. And actually, I'm going to move my contact a little lower, so the fulcrum is going to be even lower than that. It's going to be more abdominal. There you go. How far do you want to take that? And he's taking it as far as he wants to. See, and he knows. So are you appreciating the support here, that you have this fulcrum that's being more supported? Or would you like me to remove my hands? What does it feel like?
Feels good right there, yeah.
Okay, as soon as he started to come up, I did a little recoil in there. I hope you can hear the sound of release, the sound of liberation, the sound of letting go, the breath of freedom. And another move is right here at the apex of the kyphotic curve. I'm just supporting him right here. And look how fast he knows what to do. He's pushing back on my knee, and he knows how much. This is not me putting my knee in his back that's determining how deep. The knee is there, and he's going, oh, I'm going to go into that. And he'll know what's too much and what's too little. And I'll know where the fulcrum is. So my sense right here is that the fulcrum needs to be a little lower. I'm just going to move the knee down just a little bit. There you go. Now he'll feel more here. So can you appreciate that he's touching what he's touching? I'm going to do a gentle release there. There you go. As opposed to a recoil, that could have been overwhelming. So what was your experience of this session? How would you describe it?
I'd say it was definitely explorative. It was releasing. It was enlightening. Felt good to touch on some of those areas that I felt were heavy and maybe dense and tense. And then by touching those and exploring that, I felt like I was able to kind of let it go a little bit more.
Beautiful.
And bring some ease and breath and awareness to the area. And then, yeah, the seeing where it wanted to go and following that really helped to bring some lightness and ease.
So my question to you then was, how do you feel now relative to your baseline when you started? Would you say it was a real subtle change? And I appreciate the subtle change because we say never underestimate the power of a subtle shift. Would you say it was a moderate change? Would you say it was a profound change, significant? What's your feedback on it?
I'd definitely say there is change. There's a significant change in terms of the fluidity I have and I have in those areas I pointed to the beginning, but not only in those areas, and I feel in all areas of my body right now. And yeah, it just feels a lot more ease filled for sure.
So, in saying goodbye and knowing that there are strangers and people watching this that don't know you, anything you want to tell them before we sign off? Anything at all?
Yeah, I mean, and enjoy the process, and don't be afraid to explore, and yeah, allow more ease into your body, into your life, and I think that's it.
Well, I know I speak for everybody saying thank you, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you.